Hello students, कैसे हैं आप? Welcome to Baljeet ma'am's class. To continue with the chapter Nationalism in India, today I am taking up 2-3 questions, and my first question is, what was the difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement? And to start with the difference, first of all, we'll write one side non-cooperation movement and other side civil disobedience movement, and the first point is about their dates. Civil disobedience movement was started in 1930 and non-cooperation movement was started in January 1921. Second point is, in non-cooperation movement, people were asked not to cooperate with the Britishers, but in civil disobedience movement, people were asked to break the colonial laws. Your third point will be, civil disobedience movement began with breaking of salt law, whereas non-cooperation movement started with surrendering of titles, boycott of foreign goods, and boycott of schools and colleges, etc. Your fourth point is, apart from middle classes in cities, tribal people, peasants and plantation workers participated in non-cooperation movement, whereas in civil disobedience movement, women participated in large number. They left their homes and they suffered lathi charges, they went to jails, and there was lot of contribution of women in civil disobedience. Then your fifth point will be, as we had started the difference with the beginning of movement, now non-cooperation movement was called off after a violent incident in Chauri Chaura in 1922, and civil disobedience movement was called off in 1931 due to Gandhi-Irwin Pact. It was restarted in 1932 after the second roundtable conference, but it was called off finally in 1934. So these are the main differences between civil disobedience and non-cooperation movement. But if you are doing it in tabular form, then make sure that you are writing non-cooperation movement's point under that heading and civil disobedience movement point under the CDM. This is the answer of difference between civil disobedience and non-cooperation. I hope this answer is clear to everyone. Now I am taking up the second question, how participants saw civil disobedience movement. Now who were the participants? Participants were the local groups, people, those who participated in civil disobedience movement. Or a question can come, what were the different ideas of the people, those who participated in civil disobedience movement? Or what were the main demands of people, those who participated in civil disobedience movement? But with the 5 marks question or 3 marks question, the headings can come as a separate question. Now note down the headings first for this answer. Question is, how participants saw civil disobedience movement. So your first point will be civil disobedience movement and rich peasant communities. Second is poor peasantry and civil disobedience movement. Third is rich business classes and civil disobedience movement. Fourth, industrial workers, and fifth is contribution of women. Now this same points you can write for the features of civil disobedience movement where different people participated in the movement. To explain it, first point is CDM and rich peasant communities. For the explanation, you have to write just 3-4 points. In the countryside, rich peasant communities like the Patidars of Gujarat and the Jats of Uttar Pradesh were active in this movement. They were hard hit by the trade depression and falling prices, and their main demand was to reduce the revenue or the rents they were paying. Then these rich peasants become enthusiastic supporters of civil disobedience movement, organizing their communities and at times forcing reluctant members to participate in the boycott programs. And their main demand was, for them, the fight for Swaraj was a struggle against high revenues. This is the explanation of your first point, CDM and rich peasant communities. Who were the rich peasant communities? They were the Patidars of Gujarat and the Jats of Uttar Pradesh, and they were active in the movement. Second heading I have given, poor peasantries and civil disobedience movement. Now, poor peasantries were not just interested in the lowering of the revenue demand. Many of them were small tenants cultivating land, and they had rented from landlords. As the depression continued and cash incomes dwindled, the small peasants found it very difficult to pay their rents, and their main demand was remittance of rents. Right, but now see, along with this heading, a short question comes कि why Congress was reluctant to help the small farmers, or what was the attitude of Congress leaders against poor peasantry or for the poor peasantry. So you have to mention just one reason कि Congress was unwilling to support no rent campaign in most places because they did not want to offend the rich peasant classes, because they were getting the support from the rich farmers. So that is why the relationship between the poor peasants and the Congress remained uncertain. Now, the next point is rich business classes and civil disobedience movement. Now, rich business classes, they during the First World War, Indian merchants and the industrialists, they had made huge profits and become powerful, and they wanted to expand their business. So they all got together, and when they saw that a movement is started to fulfill the demands, so they all participated in the civil disobedience movement. And what were their main demands? What did they want? They wanted protection against imports of foreign goods and a rupee sterling foreign exchange ratio that would discourage the imports. And you know, they supported Congress, they even given the financial help to the movement. And then most businessmen came to see Swaraj as a time when colonial restriction on business would no longer exist and trade and industry would flourish without constraints, right? But as I mentioned earlier कि जो सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट थी वो 1930 में शुरू हुई, 1931 में कॉल बैक हुई, फिर दोबारा से स्टार्ट हुई. तो when it was restarted, when it was called back and restarted, these business communities, they were not willing to join the movement again. वो एक आपको अलग क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि why rich business class was reluctant to join civil disobedience movement when it was restarted. तो उसका रीज़न था, उसके आपके बुक में 3 reasons already mentioned हैं. First is कि they were apprehensive of the spread of militant activities. Secondly, they were worried about prolonged disruption of business, as well as third point is they were worried about the growing influence of socialism amongst the young members of the Congress. And moreover, when the second roundtable conference did not show any positive results, these people were no longer interested in the civil disobedience movement, and that is why they didn't want to join the movement again. Now your fourth point with the heading I have mentioned, that is industrial workers and civil disobedience movement. Now, industrial workers class did not participate in civil disobedience movement in large number except in the Nagpur region. Reason was कि as the industrialists came closer to the Congress, workers stayed aloof. Why? Because they knew it, they came to know that their demands will not be fulfilled. Handful of workers, they participated in the movement, but they were not much in number, and their main demands were कि they wanted increase in their wages, they wanted better working condition or living conditions, right. Then last point is contribution of women. You know, in civil disobedience movement, large number of women, they came out of their homes to listen to Mahatma Gandhi. They participated in the protest marches, manufactured salt and picketed foreign cloth and liquor shops. Many even went to jails, and in urban areas, these women, they were from the high caste families. In rural areas, they came from the peasant households. और जब महात्मा गांधी ने सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट की कॉल दी, तो दे बिगेन टू सी सर्विस ऑफ द नेशन एज ए सेक्रेड ड्यूटी ऑफ women. So that is why they participated in civil disobedience movement in large number. So bache, this is कि what were the different ideas of people when they joined civil disobedience, or how a participant saw civil disobedience movement. Now let us see the headings once again. CDM and rich peasant communities. Second, poor peasantry and civil disobedience movement. Third is rich business classes and CDM. Fourth, industrial workers and their participation in civil disobedience movement, and the final fifth point is contribution of women. Now, I am taking up my third question, that is limitations of civil disobedience movement, कि why certain people did not participate in civil disobedience movement. There were so many reasons why people did not participate. And bache, if you see the points written here, then all these headings can come as separate questions. Same is the case with the upper question also. Participants saw the movement, and for limitations also, different headings can come as separate questions in the board examination. So let us take up the question limitations of civil disobedience movement. See the headings first. First heading is Dalits did not participate in civil disobedience movement. Second is role of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Pune Pact. Third is lukewarm response by Muslims. Fourth is issue of separate state, and fifth is all classes, different classes were not ready to, other classes were not ready to participate in civil disobedience movements due to their own reasons. So these are the 5 points, and to start with the explanation, first heading is written, Dalits did not participate in civil disobedience movement. That was the group in India, they were called untouchables, and they started calling them depressed classes, and you know, Congress ignored them for long time. और रीज़न क्या था इग्नोर करने का कि कांग्रेस दे हैड ए फियर ऑफ ऑफेंडिंग द Sanatanis, the conservative high caste Hindus, right. So this was the reason Dalits did not want to participate in civil disobedience movement. Then second point is, add one more point here with this only, कि Dalits wanted political empowerment. Many different political groups were formed by them, and they knew that without getting them politically empowered, their demands cannot be fulfilled. So that is why they were more interested in their own organizations rather than joining the civil disobedience movement. Third is role of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Pune Pact. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he organized the Dalits into Depressed Classes Association in 1930 और उन्होंने सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट्स की डिमांड रखी. 1930 में ही क्लैश विद महात्मा गांधी एट द सेकेंड राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस, क्योंकि महात्मा गांधी ही बिलीव दैट सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट्स फॉर दलित्स would slow down the process of their integration into the society. तो फिर एंड में डॉक्टर बी आर अम्बेडकर ने महात्मा गांधी की डिमांड को एक्सेप्ट करके पूना पैक्ट साइन किया इन सितंबर 1932 और रिजर्व्ड सीट्स के लिए वो मान गए कि लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल, सेंट्रल लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल्स में दलित्स को रिजर्व्ड सीट्स दी जाएंगी. राइट. Then third point is lukewarm response by Muslims. Muslims ने फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर में साथ दिया. Then some of the Muslim political organization in India, they were lukewarm in their response to the civil disobedience movement. क्योंकि जैसे ही खिलाफत और नॉन कोऑपरेशन मूवमेंट ख़त्म हुई, जो काफ़ी मेजर ग्रुप ऑफ मुस्लिम्स था, वो लोग कांग्रेस से दे वर नॉट हैप्पी विद कांग्रेस. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्होंने देखा था कि जो हिंदू रीजनल रिलीजियस नेशनलिस्ट ग्रुप्स हैं लाइक हिंदू महासभा, कांग्रेस, दे केम टू बी मोर विजिबली एसोसिएटेड विद दैट ग्रुप. अब मुस्लिम्स को ये था कि अगर हम आज़ादी मिलती है या उनकी डिमांड्स फुलफिल होती हैं तो क्या होगा कि दे वर वरीड अबाउट द रिप्रेजेंटेशन इन द पार्टी और इन द कंट्री. सो दैट इज़ वाई देयर रिस्पॉन्स टू सिविल डिसोबीडियंस मूवमेंट वॉज ल्यूकवार्म. फोर्थ इज इशू ऑफ सेपरेट स्टेट. नाउ once again Muslim communities, they raised the demand for Muslim League, that was the main organization. There one of the important leader was Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He put forward the demand of separate electorates. Separate electorates की डिमांड को वो छोड़ना चाहते थे. He was willing to give up कि अगर Muslims were assured reserved seats in Central Assembly and representation in proportion to population. But this demand did not seem to be fulfilled. That is why they started asking for a separate state. Then the fifth point is when the civil disobedience movement started, there was an atmosphere of suspicion and distrust. Large section of Muslims, they did not respond to the call for a united struggle because they feared that culture and identity of minorities would be submerged under the domination of a Hindu majority. So now these are the main limitations of CDM. Even you can mention here the point of industrial workers again, कि industrial workers did not participate in the civil disobedience movement because rich business class were supporting the Congress. So that point also can be added here as fifth point. Right? I hope limitations of civil disobedience movement are clear to everyone. Now, to wind up, only one important question which is still there, which is left, that is question of collective belongingness, factors that affected, and secondly, what were the main demands or what was the meaning of Swaraj for the people, those who participated in the non-cooperation movement. So we'll take up in the next video. और अगर आपको ये वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो don't forget to like and subscribe and just press the bell icon. Thank you.